This conference will now be recorded.
Todd?
Yes. You ready? Okay, good morning. Linda, do you have any idea what that is, and can we mute it?
Yeah, Todd, I muted it. It's one of the specific users, whoever's logged in as Joe, J-O.
Okay. All right, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Todd, Maintenance Manager for Government, current member of the Ncta Executive part of the O&M Outreach Team. The Ncta would like to welcome everyone and thank you for participating in today's AAR Field and Office Manual 101 webinar presented by Stephen Berkshire and Nicole Fimple, both with the AAR. Now, I'd like to turn it over to John Ward for a brief antitrust statement.
Thank you, Todd. I'd like to point out that in pursuing lawful cooperation, assistance, and exchange of ideas, National Coal Transportation Association members must be aware in particular of antitrust laws. In any gathering of competitors, suppliers, and customers, we must be mindful to avoid discussions on prices, allocation of territory, excluding or limiting dealings with suppliers or customers, or broadly speaking, any discussions which are intended to or which may have the effect of restricting competition in any sense. I don't think we'll have any issues like that coming up in a webinar like today, but if anyone does feel uncomfortable, please speak up and raise attention. If your concerns are not immediately addressed, please withdraw and we will address the situation afterwards. So just don't talk competitive stuff. We'll be just fine. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, I'd like to ask that everybody keep their lines muted, phone lines, things like that, to cut down on any background noise. If you have questions during the webinar, you can type them into the message box at any time, and they'll be addressed at the end of the presentation. Today's presenter is Steve Berkshire, Nicole Fimple, and with that, I'll turn it over to them for today's webinar.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody being here today. I've got the easy part. Nicole gets to answer all your questions. But this is just going to be a general overview, just kind of a 100-foot view of what is out there, and it's to get a little bit more familiar with the manuals, especially if people are not familiar with the field and office manual. They work hand in hand together, so it's something that is useful, and hopefully you get something out of this presentation. And I'll try not to bore you to death, but we'll head on and see how it goes. So what do we look at for car repairs? You know, we talk about gauges a lot. We talk about doing the repairs, billing the repairs, and how does it all work together? Where do we get the information from? And what is the field manual? And basically, the field manual is just minimum repairs to keep cars moving. You know, the idea is that these are repairs that need to be done to keep the car moving so that the freight can keep going to destination. You know, that's the idea behind it. And the idea is that the field manual has these repairs that need to be done, and the office manual is there to help with the billing. It also has some other general information in there, which we'll take a look at as we go through. And hopefully you'll see how they work hand in hand together. So when we look at the field manual, you know, it's broken down into a lot of different things. There's a lot of different rules throughout the whole field manual that deal in certain sections. Rule A here kind of discusses who needs to comply, you know, and informs you that, you know, there are other publications that may be needed to be reviewed throughout the field manual. You know, it refers to different publications and different rules. You know, the field manual is broken down into useful ways. Rule A here, you know, what's highlighted is showing that these are the people that need to be involved with the repairs. They need to be involved with the billing. And, you know, again, it's telling you that there's all sorts of different manuals that you may have to look at. Again, it's broken down into a couple of different ways, the field manual, and with the review and the changes that are coming out for 2020, you know, Nicole has been getting everything together and trying to get the field manual more unified, more so that each rule is set up the same way. Most of them are, but a few of them needed some tweaking, and she's been working on that along with the other committees to get everything together. As you see in Rule 3 here off to the right, you know, Part A of a rule is cause for attention at any time. These are things that need to be corrected on a freight car, and they're items that are listed in the rules and in each rule, and the A1 defects are what need to be done at any time. You know, they're items that are cause for attention. A2 items are cause for attention when the car is on the repair track. So you've got a car, it has something that you can't fix out in the yard, it goes to a repair track, and that's where the A2 items take effect. Now, as we keep going through, Section B talks about correct repairs. So you've got the rules. You have Section A that tells you this is when you need to repair it. This is when it's on a shop or repair track. These are other items that have to be corrected when they're on there. We go to, you know, Section B is correct repairs. What needs to be done? You know, what has to be done when it's there and you're working on the car. And they may refer to different sections in the field manual, and it also may talk to different publications. Now, we look at the rule here, Rule 3. It's telling you that when a car is on a shop or repair track, you have to do a set and release minimum, and it's telling you what the set and release is and the steps. And it tells you that if you're going to be doing piston travel or adjusting piston travel, it's telling you that you may need to refer to the S4009 or 4010. It also refers to air brake tests and setting piston travel. It also refers to the S486. So there's a whole bunch of references throughout the rules. You take a look at it, and they give you discussion points. It gives you where you need to go to find the information. If you've been doing it for a while, you may not have to go back and look at the S4009 or the 4010 because you're familiar with how to set the slack adjusters up and what it takes. So it tells you these things. And as you go through the rules in the field manual, Section C discusses reconditioning requirements. You know, the components that you're going to be using, some of them are required to be reconditioned at an M1003 facility, some aren't. Some are required to meet certain specifications. You know, you look at the reconditioning requirements here for the Rule 3 here, and it's talking that there's no applicable reconditioning requirements for air hoses, but it's telling you that the couplings, the nipples, and all these other things have to comply with a certain rule or a certain specification before you can use them. Section D discusses other requirements, and it may tell you that welding is required, and if you're going to do the welding, that you're going to need to comply with the D15-1, the railroad repair, or it may tell you that you've got to comply with certain other aspects. And then as we keep going through the book and we keep looking at the different items, the different rules and the different sections in there, Section E is general information. It's telling you good information, required information. It's telling you if you do this, you also have to do something else, or you may have to look at this. In this instance, I've got highlighted there that charges for truck-mounted piston travel adjustments aren't permitted. So it's giving you instructions. If you're doing a single car test and you're adjusting piston travel, then it's not permitted to charge for that. On the other hand, it's saying that the charge is permissible if you're doing certain other things. So you kind of have to read through the rules to see the information that's there. The general information has a lot of good stuff in there. It may tell you all sorts of different information. So the field manual, as you go through and you start looking at the field manual and getting familiar with it, each rule is a little different. Somebody who tells you that they know the field manual front to back, well, I kind of question them because there's too much information to know. The important thing is to know where to go to get the information. You take a look at the field manual and you look at the rules for brakes, you look at the rules for couplers, you look at the rules for trucks and all of these other items in wheels. So you want to look at what the rule says, when you have to remove it, when you have to do items on the repair track, and you also want to look at Section E and B, correct repairs. So if I'm doing this, what's in there? General information. Okay, this is what also has to be done. And then you come to Section F, and it deals with some of the billing requirements and billing codes. It's there to tell you this is what you need. You've got all the information. You're going to need the location. You're going to need to show the quantity. It tells you what the condition codes are. New, secondhand, R&R. It's going to go through and give you the why made code, so you know why you removed it, what you removed, what you're applying. In the general information, it also will help you with certain aspects. Like I said, it tells you what you can bill and what you can't bill for. Section B will tell you what you can replace parts with. Can you change a service portion for an ABD? Well, can you upgrade it to an ABDW or a DB60 or something like that? So all of those charts and all those information are in there, and they tell you this, and it takes time to go through the book. And that's just for the guys that are doing the repairs. They have to get that information, and they have to get the information either input into a tablet or a computer or written down on a form and then given to someone who also bills it. So the information in F is there for the person that's actually going to be doing the billing. We talk a lot about gauges. And the AAR and TTCI has looked at gauges, and we found a lot of problems with gauges, with the use of gauges, all the mandatory gauges in Rule 1. So we look at this, and someone came up with the idea of, well, can we put out a video just to show a quick demonstration? It's not a training video. It's just a video for reference. Oh yeah, this is how I have to do it. I remember how to do it now. And this is just kind of a path on how to get to the demonstration videos that we've produced. You go to the AAR.com website. It'll take you to the Transportation Technology homepage. And there in the center, you'll see a tab that says Technical Services. And when you click on that, it brings up another screen where you can go to Mechanical Inspections. And when you click on that, it brings you up to a home page where you have on the left-hand side a couple more drop-down menus that you can get to. And when you click on the field manual gauge use demonstration, it kicks you to the home page on the right. And as you can see, there's some videos there. They're short videos. They're not there to train people. It's to refresh their memory on, oh yeah, this is how it's there. The field manual also gives you some pictures and descriptions on the gauges, on how they look when they're applied. But the video goes a little bit farther. It helps you say, this is what you're looking for when you're doing this. So they are in TTCI put this together to help the industry. And it's going to continue to grow, and we're going to continue to get all the gauges in there, except for the single car air brake test, because, to do it manually is going to take you about 45 to 55 minutes. So that's a little long for a video. One of the topics that we find recently, and what's in the field manual, is information for the uncoupling levers and the lock lift clearance. There's a lot of information in the field manual, and this is a good example of information that's there. It's there, and it's in the field manual, and you kind of have to dig through to see what's needed there. You've got fillers, you've got angles, you've got clearances. All of this information is in the field manual to help the end user, to help the guy who's going to be doing the repairs. It's also in the MSRPs, but this is where you really want it. This is where the person that's doing the work is going to look for the information. So as we go through, there's a lot of information that you look at, and you sometimes have to blow it up and so you can read some of it because it is small print, but it is there, and it's there for the reason of helping the individual. So what we did was we looked at this, and the castings committee says, hey, there's been a lot of problems with the uncoupling levers, lock lift clearance, also referred to as rod eye clearance, all sorts of nomenclature out there from in the industry, depending on if you're in the East, in the West, or down South. Everybody calls it something different. But the video is there just to help. And what we've done is we made a video, and we're hoping that it will help the industry. We've also made an update to this video, but this is one, and this is kind of what we're looking at. And I'm going to take just a minute to show this to you so you can see what it is.
So we're here to look at the E60 draft system, the uncoupling lever, to make sure it's the correct one, and the gap between the lock lifter and the uncoupling lever. So the first thing that we want to do is center our coupler on our striker, make sure it's right there in the center. The next thing we want to do is come over here and look at our uncoupling lever, make sure it's not bent, it's the correct one, and make sure it has a 1/2 inch fastener, whether it be a cotter key or a bolt. The cotter key should be bent on the back side, and when it's on the repair track and shop track, it has to have the filler. So this one is correct. So the next thing we want to do is measure the distance from the bracket to the inside of the uncoupling lever. And we want to have 4 1/4 to 3 3/4, so it's right on the borderline 4 1/4. But if that was not in the 3 3/4 to 4 1/4, then we would either need to replace the uncoupling lever or adjust it. Some of them adjust, and then you have to weld it. So the next thing we want to do is check our gap between the lock lifter and the lock, and we're about 7/16 of an inch. And we're looking at quarter to half for that dimension. So if it's not between quarter to half, then it needs to be adjusted. These measurements are in the field manual in Rule 20.
So what we've got is just a quick video on what's going on and how to take a look at that. Again, all of these measurements, all of these items that were in here that you just saw in the video are in the rules. They're in the field manual, and you can take a look in the field manual. But a video sometimes puts it more into perspective on how to really measure it, where you're looking at this information. And we found that the videos do help, and this is one area that we're hoping to also get posted out there, either on the MID website, or Castings is talking about putting it onto their website. That's there as well.
Figure 1.
So anti-creep is the other item that's a little different, a little hard to take a look at, and a lot of people miss in the book. The field manual tells you to take a look at it. The FRA also is one of their items to take a look at. The picture on the left is showing a sample of some tools that may be used. Everybody has their own different tools that they can use. This just happens to be a couple pinch bars. The drawing and picture on the right is something that I believe will be added into the 2020 field manual. It's something that the Castings Committee has looked at, and what they're trying to put in there is a drawing so it's less confusing. And I'm going to take you through just another quick video of the anti-creep, and hopefully this will be useful for you all as well.
We're going to check the operation of the coupler to make sure it operates properly, opening and closing. So what we want to do, we want to grab our uncoupling lever and make sure that the coupler operates fully in full open position, which it did. The next thing we want to do is close it and make sure our lock drops all the way to the full lock position. If it doesn't operate properly, then you can use dry lubricants to certain points of the lock and the thrower and the knuckle, and then try it. And if it still doesn't work, then we could replace some parts. The next thing we're going to do is check our anti-creep. So you need a small pry bar and a straight screwdriver. And we're going to put the pry bar in that little spot on the knuckle. Put the screwdriver under here on our lock. While prying up, I'm going to force the lock back, and it shouldn't open enough where the knuckle should open. If it does, then we need to change our lock lifter first. Lock second, then the knuckle, or it could be all three until it works properly. All these things that I showed you are in MSRP Section S, Specification M212, Appendix D.
So again, the information is out there, and certain MSRPs are there for reference. The videos help. The drawings that they're adding into the field manual also help. You know, it gives you a better idea where to place the bars when you're checking this. This information is in the field manual. You know, it's there to take a look at. So as we go through the field manual, again, this is just checking operations for anti-creep. There's also other items in the field manual that are there for looking at. I mean, you got to gauge your wheels. You got to check your clearances on your side bearings. You know, there's all sorts of information and all sorts of publications that they send you to, but we try to make it easy so that everybody can find useful information there. One of the things that we look at and the inspectors do and is we use a checklist. You know, if you're starting up a facility, it's a great idea to have a checklist. You may want to get out there, you know, every 6 weeks or so and just do a check on the facility to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing until everybody gets it into their mind and then you may not do the inspections as often. Maybe you kick it back to once a quarter and then twice a year or something like that. We use checklists for consistency and to make sure we don't miss anything. And it's a great idea to do that as well when you're starting up a facility, whether it's a repair facility, whether it's a wheel shop, whether it's an air brake shop. There are checklists available. You know, we put some on the website. There's also in the MSRPs, they have checklists, and a lot of that information is right there to take a look to make sure you're in compliance. Another area that we find problems with are cars that have been repaired and they're released. So we take a look at the outbound cars coming off the repair tracks, and people, you know, they don't always look at the field manual. They aren't reading the field manual that says to check this or check that, or this is the proper item to replace. So they miss stuff. You know, we've got turnover. People retire, they take their good practices with them, and other people come in and, you know, the computer tells you to go change this brake shoe or go change this handhold. So you go and change it, but you're not really looking and inspecting the car. You need to inspect the car for what's there. Everything in these pictures are cars that we found that had been released from repair tracks. You know, you look at it and there's graffiti all over cars where you can't see the reflectorization or the car numbers. You know, that's going to give you problems. Improper repairs. For instance, underneath the word inspection is a draft gear. Brand new coupler put into the draft gear. The coupler was missing when we looked at the billing. So we compared the billing to the repair. And the billing said that the coupler was missing. We looked in there, there's a brand new coupler, great. But the cross key is incorrect. The cross key that goes with that cushioning unit and that coupler is a small cross key that is locked in place by a bolt and a keeper. This is a long cross key, went all the way across that cushioning unit, and it really made the cushioning unit, you know, ineffective. I mean, it's no good. You've just made that car a rigid sill car because the coupler hits the cross key and the cross key hits the center sill. Cushioning unit is doing nothing. But these repairs are there, and come to find out that the person that did the repair wasn't trained, didn't understand that there were different cross keys, didn't understand that the units had different ways of working. So training and having people familiar with the field manual is really important. You know, and using gauges correctly, you know, the ride control gauges. Understanding that there's distances that have to be kept. The bottom right-hand corner is a crossover platform that was added, kind of torch cut there to put onto place so that they replaced one that was broken. But the clearance between the hand grab and the crossover platform is less than 2 inches. You know, it doesn't have the proper clearance. The individual didn't either know it or didn't take the time to correct it. So these are things, when I say use a checklist, take a look at your repair bills, go out there and take a look at the car that's been released and compare the two. Walk around the car. Welding is there, porosity. You look at Rule 83 and it tells you that you got to have qualified welders. We're going to look to see if the people are qualified and if they're putting out good weld. And that's the same thing that you should do as you're going through and looking at your facility. Material storage is another area that we find a lot of problems with, and it's an easy fix. It's things that you take a look at. There's requirements in the field manual. There's requirements in the publications that are required for you to take a look at and have these things, cover the ends of it. We've had this nice cold snap that came through, and if the air brake valves are uncovered, water can get in there. Now you've cracked the housing and the valve's no good. Wheel storage, it's the same thing. If you're not storing the wheels properly, you're going to end up with dinging the axles, chipping the bearings. All this stuff adds cost to the industry, and it adds cost to your repairs. Excuse me. So we look at the office manual. The office manual is the base for the AAR billing. It has labor rates, it has scrap rates, it has material costs and billing codes. It also has general instructions on how to bill things and where to look for other items. There's a lot of information in the office manual that isn't in the field manual, and sometimes they're in both because it's that important. But it talks about a little things in there. It talks about location for AEI tags. There's tie down and load restraints. There's trailer hitches and parts. And then it has the billing information, the codes, and what you can get for the change of the part. The field manual and office manual, the repairs and billing was not set up to make a profit. It was set up to cover the cost of the repairs. The cost should be the same for Bob's railroad as it is for Jeff's railroad. It's there. If Jeff's stuff is on Bob's railroad, it should cost him the same as if Bob's stuff was on Jeff's. And it's the minimum repairs to keep the car going. So it never was designed to make money. It's just there to cover the costs. And as we go through the office manual and the field manual, Rule 83 in the field manual talks about requirements that are needed for billing. We talked about this earlier. Rule 83 gives the information of what's needed, and Section F deals with requirements. The office manual gives you the prices and everything. The office manual also gives you service fees. In Appendix E, there's costs for certain types of inspections, M1001, M1002, M1003, your tank car, your car manufacturing, your quality assurance. It also has costs in there for routine inspections, tank car inspections. So all of this stuff is in there. And it's good information in the office manual, so you're not surprised by any prices or anything. The other item that's in there is when you are looking to do extended life or increased life status or rebuild, Rule 88 in the office manual gives you all of that information. It's in the office manual because it doesn't need to be in the field manual. You're not going to be doing those type of repairs all the time. It's specialty, and it's in the office manual so that you can look at it. You can see what's required to do under the repairs. And it even has a checklist in there that's about, pardon me, 5 pages long or so. So there's all sorts of stuff in the office manual that's there for everyone to use. The other items that are in the office manual that's good to know is it tells you about service interruption. It tells you what's allowed, what isn't allowed. Transfer or adjustment of lading between carriers. You got a problem with loading and there's something that has to be done. The information is in there. It tells you a couple ways to do it and a couple ways to bill for it. UMLR information, how to report it, the procedures on how to do it. Equipment health management, what's there, how do you get to it? Here's some links, this is what you got to do, this is information, and it's required in the field manual. Here's how you get to it. It also talks about defects cards, the preparation in DDCT, and it gives you links and other aspects on what is needed information for that and for filling out that information. Now, how to handle destroyed and damaged equipment, how much your time limits are on there. It also tells you how the pricing is figured for the office manual. And it tells you when you're doing the billing data, what the requirements for the billing data is and how to get to it and what websites and links are there for that. So there's a lot of different information as you go through it that's not really needed in the field manual, but it's needed for the person that's doing the billing or general information that doesn't happen every day out there in your handling of damaged and destroyed cars. Rule 120 is in both the office and field manual. It's one of those important rules that talks about compliance and enforcement. Tells you that the AAR is going to do an inspection of your facility. We're there to take a look that you're in compliance, and that you're doing the repairs correctly and that you have the needed tools to do the repairs, that people know how to do what they're doing, that they're qualified to do the welding or the air brake tests or whatever is needed. It also tells you with the enforcement and the inspection, there's also arbitration, the rules in our committee. This is the people that look at the rules. They ask for clarification of the rules from the committees, or they ask the committees to update the rules. They ask committees to go through and make things better. They themselves look at the rules and agree or disagree with the interpretations, or we need to clear this up, we need to get things in sync. If there's a dispute between two parties, ARB also helps with the with that information and going through that process. We talked about appendixes earlier. We talked about Appendix E that talked about pricing for inspections. Appendix B talks about procedures and operations of maintenance pools. So there's different rules and different things, and they go through and they talk about the maintenance pools. There's also in there in the appendixes the EOT devices, your telemetry devices, the billies or whatever you want to call them, and the billing for that and how to do that. So there's a lot of different information that's in there in the office manual and the field manual, and they work hand in hand, and they help a repair facility or a short line or a railroad, whoever it is, on what they need to know, how they need to go about getting to it. And they give you a lot of links and added information. All right, I'm almost done here. Hopefully I haven't put anybody to sleep out there. In our wrap up, the field manual. So its use it, It refers to other specifications and publications like the FRA manual or the D15-1 or MSRP Section S. There's all sorts of different items in there. You need to get familiar with it. You need to look at it. And it refers you to other publications. The office manual is one of them. There's a lot of information in the office manual for billing and general information. It's good to take a look at that. Again, they work hand in hand. One refers you to the other, and the other may refer you back to the field manual on certain aspects. The MSRPs, they're there. They may be needed at a facility. They may not. It all depends on what you're doing and the type of repairs you're doing. But there's a lot of information in the MSRPs that the field manual refers to, or field manual gets its direction from as well. Gauge use. It's really important for the facility to know how to use the gauges, to be familiar with the gauges, to understand when they need to get them out and when they need to take a look at them. Part of the inspection of the car when it comes in, you're going to need gauges out there to take a look at it. Now, we want to see the gauges be used. You need to use the gauges because there are going to be things that you miss that you think you've got an idea about, but the gauge helps you really clearly understand. Billing and forms. You know, the billing and forms, you've got to look at the billing. You got to understand the parts that you put in there are correctly billed, that you got the correct parts, that you're using the right Y-made codes, the right job codes, all of that information. The forms that need to be filled out, whether it's the MD115 or MD11, whether they're online or they're hand paper copy. These are all things that a facility needs to know and they need to take a look at. And that's it. I'll open it up for questions for Nicole.
All right, thank you, Steve. I did see a couple questions come in. One of them is the field and office manual available electronically? And the answer is yes. If you purchased a subscription to the field and office manual, you should have gotten an invite to download a copy of the field and office manual this year. It was complimentary as we kind of just got it out there, but effective January 1, you will have the option to either purchase the paper copies like you do today or electronic copies. Now, one thing to note about those electronic copies is when you purchase a copy, that copy is tied to one user on one device. So you can't have one copy and use it on 5 different computers. If you want it on your laptop and your phone or your tablet, then you would have to have 2 copies. If you have any questions on that, you can email pubs@aar.com and they can answer those for you. And then the second question is how often the MSRP is updated? And that's kind of a tricky question. It's as needed. We go through spurts, so there are updates to different standards from time to time, depending on the committee work. After so many changes for those specific standards, it's about every 2 years that we try to put out and publish a new book so that everything is inclusive. Some committees are much further behind, and we are working on that currently to try to get everything up to date and get new books published. But on average, the books come out every couple of years, but the standards themselves, each individual section can change multiple times within that period. All right, this next question, Steve, I think is for you. It's where can we find the checklists that were shown in the webinar?
All right, let's see if I can really mess things up here. Hopefully you can see my screen and it shows the homepage right now for TTCI.
Yes.
Nicole does it?
Yes, it does, Steve.
All right. So as we went through and I was showing you a little bit, the technical services, we open that one up and it brings in another drop down. We're going to go over here to, let's see, mechanical inspection. And it brings up another page. And this is for the MID. The technical checklists that we use are right here. You've got the freight car maintenance, you've got M214, bearing mounting, There are other checklists that are in the MSRPs themselves that we go through and use. And let's bring up Wheel Shop. So a lot of this information out of the Wheel Shop is right out of the MSRP. They have these checklists in the back of different sections, and you'd be able to access that. Some of the MSRPs are electronic as well. If you have a subscription to the electronic versions, you can go through and download all of these. So they're in two places. We try to make the freight car mechanical one right here. It's 8 pages long. This is directly what we take a look at and what we use. It has rule references, CFRs, different things that are in there that we refer to where we're getting the questions and the check items. We look at scrap, obviously. We want to know if it's good or bad. And when I mean good, it's legitimately removed for a reason. Air brake items, you know, we're looking at, did they perform it correctly? You know, do they have the right publication out there? You know, are the trolley arrangements proper? You know, all sorts of different things like that. We've got the running gear, you know, why were they removed? A lot of the Y-mate codes we put on there because it makes it easier. You know, rim thickness. You might be really good at billing and you guys might know this off the top of your head. Not me. I need those references in there. So these lists are available there. And we try to keep them up to date. But some of them are in the MSRPs for like air brake shops and that. The checklist comes right out of the back of the MSRP. The intermodal comes out of the MSRP section I. The 970, 992 is out of the MSRPs as well, and I believe. So they're there. You can find them. If you have any specific one that you want to take a look at, you know, we'll try to lead you to the proper place. We'll gladly take any emails or comments on it. Back to you, Nicole.
All right. So before you close down that page, Steve, can you go back to it?
Yep.
We had a question on the cost of the paper versions of the office manual. And so if you can go to publications and then the interchange rules on the left.
And
So here's where you can find that. So it's $152 or starting at $152. I believe for members and non-members, there's a slightly different fee, but here's where you go to find those and order them.
And if you notice, they're in Spanish and English.
And this website, this page, and the page Steve was just on are open to the public. You don't have to be a member necessarily. You don't have to pay a fee to get to these web pages. All right, that is the last question I see up there.
Okay, well, if there's no more questions, again, the NCTA would like to thank everybody for participating today and give a special thanks to Stephen and Nicole for presenting today and answering our questions. So again, if there are no more questions, I'd like to thank everybody for being here and hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you all and keep warm.
Thank you, guys.
Linda, I guess I'll give the screen back to you.
Okay, here, I will end the meeting for everyone. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate it.
All right.
Bye-bye.